Captain Elias Ward had been in worse situations before, but this one felt different. His small exploration ship rattled as another meteor slammed into its hull. The alarm screamed, lights flickered, and smoke filled the cockpit. He fought with the controls, trying to steer the ship toward the nearest planet showing a breathable atmosphere. "Come on, just hold together a little longer," Elias muttered under his breath. The ship broke through the atmosphere with a fiery roar and crash-landed in the middle of a thick alien jungle. The impact threw him hard against the restraints, but he survived. The ship, however, was in terrible shape. The engine was gone, the communication system destroyed. His distress beacon sparked once and went silent. Elias took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay calm. Panic wouldn't help. He grabbed his survival pack, a small toolkit, and a hand scanner, then stepped outside. The planet was humid and alive with strange sounds. Towering trees with glowing blue leaves stretched into the sky, their roots twisting like giant snakes. Strange insect-like creatures buzzed past his ears, and somewhere in the distance something howled. "Perfect," Elias said dryly. "Alien jungle. No ship, no backup, no way home." He started searching for food, water, and shelter. His scanner confirmed the air was safe to breathe and the water in a nearby stream was drinkable after boiling. He gathered a few edible-looking fruits and began building a small shelter from tree branches. But before he could finish, he heard movement. Soft, quick, and surrounding him. Elias turned slowly. Figures stepped out of the foliage one by one, until a dozen of them formed a circle around him. They were tall, lean, and strong-looking, with skin in shades of green and gold that shimmered under the light. Their hair was decorated with feathers and beads, and their eyes glowed faintly like polished gemstones. Each one carried a spear made of bone and crystal. The tallest among them, a woman with blue markings across her face, stepped forward. She pointed her spear at Elias and spoke in a musical language he didn't understand. Elias slowly raised his hands. "I'm not here to hurt you, I just..." Crashed. The tribe members looked at each other, whispering. The leader circled him, curious but cautious. Then with a sharp gesture, she signaled the others. Two of them took his arms gently but firmly, and they led him away from the crash site. Elias didn't resist. Fighting would be useless. If they wanted him dead, he would already be on the ground. Instead, he let them guide him deeper into the jungle. After nearly an hour of walking, they arrived at a village hidden between huge trees. Homes were built high in the branches, connected by wooden bridges. Strange glowing plants provided light, and children peeked curiously from behind the ladders. Elias was taken to the center of the village, where a large fire burned. The tribe gathered around. The leader spoke again, her tone calm but commanding. Elias could only guess she was asking who he was and where he came from. "I'm Elias," he said slowly, pointing to himself. "Elias!" The leader tilted her head, then repeated softly, "Eli-Az." Encouraged, Elias drew a quick sketch of a starship in the dirt and pointed at the sky. He mimed a crash, then pointed to himself again. The tribe murmured among themselves. The leader nodded slightly, then gave an order. A group of villagers brought food, strange fruits and roasted meat, and placed them in front of him. Elias hesitated, then took a bite. The fruit was sweet, the meat smoky but good. He nodded and smiled, hoping to show gratitude. That night, they gave him a small hut near the edge of the village. It was simple but safe. Elias sat by the small fire they had given him and stared at the stars above. "Day 1, he whispered, still alive. The next morning, Elias decided he had to earn their trust. He followed the hunters into the forest, watching how they moved silently and worked together. He helped gather firewood and even tried mimicking their calls to scare away smaller predators. At first, the hunters laughed at him, but soon they started teaching him simple words. Elias learned water, food, and safe. Each night he practiced until he could string a few words together. Days passed, then weeks. Elias repaired some of his tools using parts from his ship and showed the tribe how to use them. He made simple fishing hooks from metal scraps, which impressed them when they caught twice as many fish as before. The tribe slowly began treating him as more than a guest. They asked for his help, shared stories with him, and painted simple patterns on his arms as a sign of belonging. The leader, whose name he learned was Karin, often spoke with him by the fire, pointing at the stars as if telling him their history. Elias felt something he hadn't expected: belonging. But one night, that peace was broken. The alarm cry of the tribe rang through the village, a low, throaty sound that made everyone grab their weapons. Elias rushed out of his hut to see Karine standing tall, spear in hand. Through the trees, shadows moved. A rival tribe was attacking. Karine threw Elias a spear. Her eyes met his, fierce and unafraid. "Fight," she said, her voice clear. Elias gripped the spear, his heart pounding. He had never fought with such a weapon before, but there was no choice. The enemy tribe was coming closer, and the people who had saved his life were in danger. He planted his feet, ready to defend the only home he had left. The first clash came fast. Elias gripped the spear tightly, stepping back as the enemy warrior charged. He wasn't a trained soldier, but survival had taught him one thing: act or die. He sidestepped and thrust the spear forward. It struck the attacker's shoulder, forcing him back. The village erupted into chaos. Warriors from Karine's tribe shouted to each other, forming a circle to protect the children and elders. Elias stood beside Karine, watching her fight with incredible speed. She spun her spear, striking two enemies at once, forcing them to retreat. Elias's breath came in quick bursts, but his fear turned into focus. He copied the tribe's movements, sidestepping, blocking, striking when he could. When one enemy tried to flank Karine, Elias tackled him to the ground. The villagers shouted in approval. After several minutes, the enemy tribe pulled back into the forest, leaving behind their wounded. The village was safe, but everyone knew it was not over. Karine stood tall, breathing hard. She looked at Elias and gave a small nod. "You fight," she said, pointing at him. "You tribe." Elias understood her meaning. They no longer saw him as an outsider. Over the next weeks, Elias trained with the warriors every day. His body grew stronger, his movements sharper. He learned their fighting stances and taught them a few human tricks, like using vines to make simple traps around the village. He also began working on a bigger idea. Using pieces from his crashed ship, he built noise alarms that would trigger when someone crossed them. The first time one of the alarms went off during the night, the tribe caught a scout from the enemy side. That small victory gave everyone hope. Elias started to feel pride. For the first time since the crash, he wasn't just surviving. He was helping others survive. But the danger grew worse. One morning, scouts returned with terrible news. The rival tribe had joined forces with a massive predator. It was a four-legged beast with armored plates along its back and claws that could tear through wood. If it attacked with the enemy warriors, the village might not stand a chance. A council was called near the central fire. The elders spoke in their soft musical language, arguing and pointing toward the jungle. Karine listened, then turned to Elias. She spoke slowly, using the words he had learned. "Big hunt. Big fight. All tribe." Elias nodded. "Then we need more than spears." He led Karine and a few warriors back to the crash site. Inside the broken ship, he scavenged for anything useful: wiring, power cells, and the last working piece of his communication core. He explained through gestures how he could make a light weapon, something strong enough to scare or even hurt the predator. But there was a problem. Once the power cell was used for the weapon, it could never be used for communications again. It meant losing any chance of calling for rescue. That night, Elias sat by the fire, staring at the stars. The thought of never returning to Earth was heavy. He missed the smell of rain on his home planet, the sound of his crew laughing. But when he looked around and saw the tribe, children playing, elders telling stories, Karine watching him with quiet trust, he realized he could not abandon them. "This is my fight now," he whispered to himself. The next days were filled with preparation. Elias turned the power cell into a crude energy blaster. It wasn't perfect, but it would work once, maybe twice, before burning out. He set traps around the village, taught the warriors how to use cover and bait the enemy toward choke points. Finally, the day came. The rival tribe attacked again, this time bringing the predator. Its roar shook the trees, its glowing eyes cutting through the darkness. The enemy warriors charged behind it, shouting their war cries. Elias stood at the front with Karine holding the blaster. His heart pounded, but his hands were steady. The first wave of enemies hit the traps. Nets fell from the trees, spears struck from hidden angles. Elias shouted for the tribe to hold the line. Then the predator came. It crashed through the defenses like they were nothing, its claws slashing, its tail smashing wooden structures. The tribe began to fall back in fear. Elias stepped forward. "Hey," he shouted, raising the blaster. The beast turned toward him, growling. He aimed and fired. A blast of blue energy lit up the night and struck the beast's armored chest. It howled in pain, stumbling backward. The rival warriors froze, shocked by the strange weapon. Elias fired again. This time the blast hit a tree near the enemy warriors, exploding into a shower of light and splinters. Terrified, the rival tribe broke and ran, dragging the wounded predator back into the jungle. The village erupted in cheers. Corinne approached Elias, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Strong," she said with pride. "Eli is strong." Elias smiled, exhausted but relieved. For the first time he felt more than just a survivor. He was a protector. Weeks turned into months. The enemy tribe never attacked again, and peace returned to the village. Elias continued to work on small projects, improving life for everyone. Better tools, safer huts, and stronger defenses. His bond with Corinne grew deeper. They spent evenings by the fire, talking slowly in mixed words, sharing stories of their people. She taught him about the stars and the tribe's legends, and he told her about Earth and its oceans, deserts, and cities. 2 months had passed since the night of the great battle. Elias no longer felt like a lost human waiting for rescue. He felt like a man with a purpose, but deep inside, he knew the jungle was still full of dangers, and one day, another challenge would come. Cliffhanger ending. One morning, Elias's scanner suddenly detected a faint signal, not from the jungle, but from space. A human ship was nearby. He stood there, holding the scanner, torn between joy and fear. If the ship found him, he could go home. But if he left, what would happen to the tribe that now depended on him? The choice was coming. Elias stared at the scanner in his hands. The faint signal blinked on its cracked screen, repeating every few seconds. A human ship was in orbit, close enough to pick up, close enough to answer. For a long moment, he stood frozen. The thought of hearing another human voice after 2 years made his chest ache. But then his eyes drifted toward the village, where children were laughing as they played near the stream. Corinne was teaching a group of hunters how to throw spears more accurately. They all depended on him now. He knelt by the fire that evening, staring at the glowing coals. Karen sat beside him, quiet but watchful. She had learned enough words to sense something troubled him. "Skycaller?" she asked softly, pointing at the scanner. "Yes," Elias said. "Misa people. They are close." Karen was silent for a while, then nodded slowly. "You go?" Elias's throat tightened. "I don't know." That night he couldn't sleep. He thought about Earth, about the smell of rain, the taste of coffee, the sound of music. But he also thought about the tribe, about the night of the great battle, about Karen's nod of respect when she called him tribe. The next morning, the choice was made for him. Scouts returned, panicked. The rival tribe was on the move again, this time with more warriors and another predator even bigger than before. If they attacked, the village might not survive. Elias clenched his fists. He couldn't leave now, not when everything he had worked for could be destroyed. He stood before the village and spoke as clearly as he could. "We fight, one last time. We protect home." The tribe cheered, raising their spears. Elias got to work. Using the last scraps of metal from his ship, he built stronger barriers and reinforced the traps around the village. He also modified the energy blaster, using every bit of power left in the cell. It would work only once, but it would be enough to stop the predator if used at the right moment. Karen helped prepare the warriors. She painted bright blue lines on their arms and faces and the markings of battle. Before the fight, she turned to Elias and placed her hand on his chest. "You, not just Skywalker," she said slowly. "You, my brother." Elias felt a lump in his throat. He gripped her hand and nodded. "Together," he said. The attack came at night. The jungle lit up with torches as the rival tribe charged. Their roars echoed through the trees, followed by the ground-shaking steps of the predator. It was massive, armored like living stone, with glowing red eyes and a roar that shook the branches. Elias shouted for the tribe to hold their positions. The first wave of enemies fell into the hidden traps, but more kept coming. Spears flew, cries filled the air, and the jungle became a storm of movement. When the predator appeared, Elias stepped forward with the blaster. "Now," he shouted. The warriors threw flaming spears, distracting the beast just long enough. Elias fired. The blue blast struck the predator's head, exploding in a flash of light. The beast staggered, roaring in pain, then collapsed with a heavy thud. The rival tribe froze. Without their monster, their courage broke. They turned and fled into the forest, leaving the battlefield silent except for the heavy breathing of the warriors. The village was safe. At sunrise, the tribe gathered in the clearing. The elders spoke, praising Elias and Karin for their bravery. The children painted new symbols on Elias's arms, symbols of victory and belonging. Later that day, Elias climbed to the highest platform in the village with the scanner. The human ship's signal was still there, waiting. He activated the transmitter and spoke slowly into the cracked microphone. "This is Captain Elias Ward," he said. "I'm alive. I found a tribe here, peaceful, strong. Tell the fleet this world is not empty. Tell them it is worth protecting. I will remain here. This is my home now." He switched off the transmitter and set the scanner aside. When he climbed back down, Karin was waiting. "You stay?" she asked. Elias smiled. "I stay." Karin nodded, a rare smile on her face. She handed him a carved necklace, the tribe's mark of family. Elias put it on, feeling the weight of it settle against his chest. Months passed. The jungle became quieter. The rival tribe never returned. The village grew stronger, with new huts and better defenses. Elias became a teacher, showing the younger hunters how to make simple tools from metal scraps, how to set traps, how to use signals for warnings. The tribe flourished. One night, as Elias sat by the fire, he looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, a human ship had heard his message. One day they would come. And when they did, they wouldn't just find a lost captain. They would find a man who had built a bridge between two worlds. Elias smiled. For the first time since the crash, he felt truly at peace. "This is where I belong," he whispered. The jungle sang around him, and the fire crackled warmly. Elias knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new hunts, new days. But he was ready. After all, he was no longer just a visitor. He was a member of the tribe,